And it was a busy window that closed with a British transfer record fee that was paid. To look back at some of the major talking points, we're joined now by football finance expert Kieran Maguire. Kieran, lovely to see you. Thank you so much. I imagine you're probably as pleased as anyone that the window is now closed. But, I mean, sum it up. It was quite an incredible window in many ways, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a record-breaking window. The Premier League spent more money. In fact, Chelsea spent more money than the Italian, Spanish, French and German leagues put together. I think it's indication of the appeal of the Premier League. It's broadcast to 188 countries. It's got fantastic broadcasting deals and commercial deals. And that's given it buying power to really not only compete, but beat the other big boys in European football.
Kieran, we're in the strange times, aren't we, where nationally we're in a cost of living crisis, financially at breaking point, and yet football continues in this bubble, and particularly Chelsea. I mean, this British record for Enzo Fernandez, I mean, their spending has been nothing short of extraordinary under Todd Boehly. What have you made, A, of their spending, but B, the approach of Chelsea's new chairman?
Well, having spent £2.5 billion acquiring the club, it's a bit like buying a house. You know, once you've moved in, you then want to give it your particular viewpoint, you know, to make it in alignment with your values. And I think this is what's happened with the Boehly Group. So they have been very keen to reorganise the team. In terms of the way that they've spent the money, I think the interesting thing is it's a high-risk, potentially high-reward strategy of securing players on long-term deals. This means that for FFP purposes, the costs of the players are much lower than perhaps people would have anticipated. So if Fernandez comes in on a £105 million deal over 8 years, that only works out as around about £13 million a year from an FFP perspective. The downside of that is that if the players don't turn out to be as good as expected, you're then locked into long-term wage commitments, which could cause problems further down the line.
Kieran, we've seen long contracts handed out, haven't we, at Chelsea? Fernandez is expected to sign an 8.5-year deal. I mean, with the one side, it's a huge risk for a player that doesn't work out for you. But just explain to people watching why Chelsea are doing this.
Well, under FFP rules in the Premier League, it's based on your revenue less your costs. And the way that the accountants deal with football transfers is that if you sell a player, all of the profit goes into the calculations immediately. But if you buy a player, the cost is spread over the life of the contract. So the longer the contract, the lower the annual cost in respect of an individual player. This has allowed Chelsea to go out and buy players, a series of players on long-term contracts. There was talk, for example, yesterday of Conor Gallagher potentially going out to another club with a sale price of around about £40 million. Well, that would have been pure profit for Chelsea, and if they bought players on 7-year deals, they would have been able to spend 7 times £40 million, which would have been £280 million in the market, and still from the accounting point of view would have broken even. So that's clearly been their strategy. Under the UEFA rules, which are just coming into existence, that's linked to wages plus transfer costs plus agents' fees as a percentage of revenue. Well, again, by spreading those transfer fees over longer periods, it allows Chelsea to buy more players for the same amount of money, but being less chances of breaching financial fair play.
Wherever you look, Kieran, in terms of what's happened in January in the Premier League, that the figures are absolutely eye-watering. We've focused on Chelsea already, but looking across the board in the Premier League, it's dwarfing that which we're seeing in terms of the European leagues. Is this a trend that's just going to continue?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a few unusual features which perhaps are slightly more unique with regards to season 22-23, in the sense that we effectively have 3 new sets of owners in the Premier League with the Boehly Clearlake Group at Chelsea. We've got new owners at Bournemouth, and remember, they've spent probably close to £50 million themselves, and that went under the radar even in the last 24 to 48 hours. The Newcastle owners, they are still relatively new. So new owners want to spend money. The top of the Premier League, it's now very competitive. Six clubs into 4 Champions League places always caused stresses, and that meant that clubs were keen to spend money. With Newcastle now in the equation, you've got 7 going into 4. The value of the Champions League is worth up to €120 million a year as far as prize money is concerned, so clubs are very anxious to get that. At the bottom of the Premier League, we've got 7 clubs within 3 points of one another. If you sign that one player that gets you that one goal, that gets you that 1 point that avoids relegation, that's worth a fortune to clubs. So all of the clubs are incentivised to spend money, and that's why we've seen such an active market this January.
Brilliant as ever. Kieran, thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Kieran.